Alright, so we're seeing if this works tonight here. So I'm doing a little bit of paint streaming here. So I've got a couple different things I'm working on. I've got this lovely converted flat track hellhound. So this, all we've done on this so far is I primed this sucker. Still a little wet on the bottom there. Primed him, and then I've taken all the areas. I primed him in gray sear, and then all the areas that you can see there have been covered with basilicanum gray contrast paint. So now we're going to do what's my next typical step on 90% of the things I do, seemingly. And we're going to put some metallics on here. So I have this guy, and I also have, these lovely horses. So they have also been silicone grade in all the places where I'm going to put metallic. So I find doing the metallic first is where I like to start when I'm trying to get things quickly. So I didn't always used to use gloves when I painted, but now that I've started, I can't stop. So, alright, let's see. Oh, I need to grab something really quick. Dry brush here. I have some palettes that have developed with some texture over time, and I'm doing a really dirty dry brush of this because with the way that I paint, we got several layers that we're going to do. So this is really just this, and the basilicanum gray is all just really establishing what I like to think of as a good nuanced base coat of our primary color, which here is going to be this Iron Warriors is our base starting point. And you can see I'm just kind of going to town on this sucker. There's some parts on the bottom of this that are still a little wet, so, but that doesn't matter for what I'm doing. So let's say we're just trying to make sure we get a good solid foundation where most of the model is a fairly uniform color, although you're still gonna see places where it's not perfect, and you're gonna see places where the darkness shines through in the recesses there, so you're kind of getting that like brushed, beat up steel look. A lot of people have asked me how I get that, and so this is kind of how we do. So, alright, so that's that. Alright, so then we're going to do these horsies. So I need a much smaller brush for the horsies. So that will do. And also you can see I work in like absolutely the worst possible conditions that a human can work in for painting. Like all this, and I'm doing all the stuff that people tell you not to do who are good painters. So, paint right out of the pot. Alright. So there's all the places that have Basilicanum Gray kind of just hitting with like a really dirty, not even quite like half dry brush of this. Because like I say, we're going to do a lot of things to this before we're all said and done to get to our end color. So, and I already painted 5 of these guys, so I kind of know where I'm painting on most of them. This stuff. So, hopefully this shouldn't take me as long, especially since I have to do 10 more of these. Which is awesome because horses are sick, but it's very sad because horses take a long time to paint. So so yeah, right now, so here's what we've gotten so far. Nothing terribly exciting. Gosh, focus camera on the horse. There we go. So, but we're gonna go from that to, here's what our more finished horses are looking like. I waited to base all of them until, come on now, camera focus please. Okay. So I waited to base all of these until I had the rest done, because I'm gonna put some snow and some flowers and stuff on them. So kind of simple, but I did do a little fun little head swap with these guys with some Solar Axilla. So they've got a little different character than your typical ones. It's really like you want to make people go gaga over an army without expending too much effort to do a lot of conversions. The number one easiest thing you can do is just do some cool head swaps, and that'll really take you pretty far. And it's like so easy these days to get that compared to what it was in the past. I remember ordering Polish resin heads back in the early aughts, and waiting like 6 months for that to arrive was just ludicrous. So yeah, and you can see I am just really doing a terrible job right now of all of this. Like there is no thought that's being paid to brush control or accuracy. We're just getting some color on there because we're going to correct everything else later on. That's how I paint anyways. So and I'm not a Golden Demon painter, but I can get an army ready very quickly, and I'm going to show some of that stuff off at some point here in the near future when I've got a few days off and I've got some stuff built, because I got some Christmas presents in the form of some Kriegsmen, and I'm probably going to buy myself some Scions soon as well, so those will be fun. Alright, so so now we got that. Alright, so that color is down, so we're done with that. Then we have our like highlight dry brush. And my water looks really disgusting. And I usually let it be really nasty, but I feel a little self-conscious right now, so I'm gonna actually go change it really quick. Yay, fresh water for the moment. Alright. Okay, so this is our like highlight silver, so alright, we're just gonna go over all of this. Just kinda lightly with this, like not letting it go down in the recesses, so that we keep, there's some unpainted recesses of the model that have just got gray in them. There's some places where we've just got the Iron Warrior, and then there's some places where we're getting a lot of this. Alright, and so that's gonna get me this brighter brushed steel look. Okay, so may not seem like really a huge difference, and it's not. But you know, if you're gonna, depending on what look you're going for, you may want to take it higher. You can take it to even higher places. There's fun ways to do that. I might show some of those things off in another video, like at some point when I'm doing all my Votan. Let me show off something a little fancier here. So this is what I'll be doing for my Votan. And so when I start doing those, I'll do a lot of these on stream. So I don't enjoy playing Votan, but they are really cool to paint. I'm painting them all like that, even my little infantry guys. So, but that does take a lot of time to get that effect. So, they are time consuming. What I'm showcasing tonight is how to do something that's not time consuming. How to paint some stuff fast, because I like having stuff ready to paint, or I like having stuff painted and ready to play at events. And so that's the purpose of what I'm up to tonight. So now we're going back over to Horsies. And this is why I like to have a couple things to paint at once, is because this lets my paint set and dry on the other thing. It's even better. You can paint a whole army in about, with the right color scheme, paint a whole army in about 12 to 14 hours by just rotating through what you're doing and letting stuff dry. And then by the time you come back around to do your next step, it's all dry. True power Chad move is what that is. So, and again, you're gonna notice I am not being like really nitpicky. Like, I did rub a lot of this off. This is a pretty, I mean, the Iron Warrior Iron Breaker combo is especially over the Basilicanum Gray is really already pretty nuanced. Gives you a good like bright beaten metal look. But I'm gonna do more with it anyway. So any imperfections, the way that I paint cleans up over time. I start with certain things that I've learned over time how I like to approach stuff. Let's see. Okay, that is what I did there. Okay. I'm really hard on my brushes, and if you look at my brushes, they are beat to crap. I mean, and that just goes to show that you really don't have to have the best tools or necessarily even the best technique to get a good looking army. Sometimes it just takes some shortcuts. I use really simple methods just to get stuff done quickly. But the beauty of what I do too is that if I ever want to punch anything up to just a little higher level, it's easy to push it up a couple notches by just doing some additional work on the model. It's not like that I'm taking shortcuts that don't let you push your models to the next level if you don't want, or if you want to. Alright. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So now we got that. So now our next step is, oh, my paint's got shifted around. So let's see what we got. We got some Balthazar gold here. This is, I'm going to use this as a copper color. Alright, got my trusty dusty absolute beat to crap brush. Yeah, you can't even, like, yeah, it looks terrible. But this is what I'm going to use. So we're going to pick out some stuff we're going to do in this Balthazar gold to break up our silver. So I've picked up, there's some little, you can't see them right now, but I'll show them off when they're painted. There's some little X's down in this because this originally started its life as some artillery piece, and I just kind of left the big missiles off of it, added some additional armor plating, added an additional big flamer type gun, and now it's a hellhound. So, alright. Let's see what we got here. So, and I'm trying to be pretty precise with these, but these don't have to be perfect. So, alright, so you can see what I've done in there. So I've just picked those out. Pretty cool. And yes, I am just literally taking paint straight out of the jar. And no, I don't want to hear about it from anyone. Okay. So then you see there got a little and scroll and stuff picked out on the sides. So it's kind of breaking up that side panel. I'm gonna do some other cool stuff on this. I like to do hazard stripes. So I'm gonna do those at some point. I'm gonna show how I do that. Because lots of people have asked me about that, and I do all my hazard stripes freehand by hand. And then there we see we have the other side all done there. Cool. All right, so now got that done. So let's see, what else are we going to do in this color on here? We're just going to do the nozzles of this heavy flamer. Because I started doing all my guns in this army in this color so that the guns would kind of stick out. I kind of like the look it gave my infantry models, and I like the look it's given my tanks too. Alright, so we got that, and then we got this other cannon up top. And we're just gonna Balthazar gold it up. So I'm not like super worrying about being perfect or precise with this, because if some of this shows through, it's just going to look like wear and tear. Let's see, so we've got the barrel, and then let's do this part here, this little tank. That'll make it look cool. Oh, really basic, not exciting. Alright, so yeah, but now you see, so we've got this, which started off as just a gray, is now a couple different colors of silver beat up, and you can see we've got some gold on there now. So now the next step on this guy is to go ahead and do these treads, because once I do that, he's 3 colors, and technically we could just stop there. He could be done. Like, so anyways, I'm not going to, like, that's not where I stop this process, but you could. Alright, so that is full of, alright, that was what I was using that for. Cool. So now I'm going to so this is one of the times where I will actually engage in a little bit of paint thinning with my dirty paint water. That's what I like to do. This is going to expose all of my bad painting habits to everybody. So. Alright. Oh. I'm going to scoop that back up. Toss it down here into the pot. Okay, beautiful. And then we're going to grab this little brush, which I refer to as my utility brush, and I want you guys to see what this looks like. Yeah. So that's what I'm using. It is all beat to absolute crap. So we're going to take that, and we're just going to use that, and some watered down black, and we're just going to hit these treads. can do this with like Black Templar too. That also works really well for this particular purpose because it is, you know, that contrast paint consistency, so it's going to go down in there. But for some reason, I actually really like using watered down Abaddon Black for this, very specifically. I just really like what, I guess, end result I get off of it. So, and because I've watered it down a little bit, it doesn't matter if just a little bit of it spills over onto the edge of the tank there. It's not going to be a huge deal because that silver is a pretty strong color there. It's just going to kind of give you a little weather effect-ish along the edge there, and if you don't like it, how it looks if you do that, you know, exercise a little bit better brush control than what I'm doing, or the other thing you can do is go back and clean it up afterwards, which is usually what I'll do if I don't like what has happened here. But here, this particular instance, I'm about to run out of this black. I'm going to have to mix up a little bit more of it here in a minute for the second set of treads, but I think I like what we've got here so far. Yeah, okay. So you can see and when it dries, it'll be less pronounced any of those places where I've kind of overpainted, and I can go back if I want to and fix those. So, but alright, so we've got that. So now it's time to set it on its side for a second here. And go ahead and grab a little bit more black. And a little bit more water. Make this concoction again. Alright. Cool. Alright. So treads number 2. Doesn't matter, again, none of this matters if it is 100% perfect, in my opinion, because we're still going to do another step, at least I'm going to. Now, I mean, like I said, what's fun about the way that I paint is that, like I say, you can just keep going with it until you're satisfied. Like, there's a point at which I give up in every project, and it's different for every project, but you know, especially on the bottom here, it doesn't matter if we're a little sloppy. Literally nobody is ever going to look at that. Okay. So now, we have a tank. 3 colors. You got the black treads. You've got the silver or, steel body. and you've got the gold accents. Fully done. There you go. That took 30 minutes of this video for us to do that. So now we're going to let it set on its side here to dry. And this is the reason why I actually don't like using the contrast paint, because I can't do this with the contrast paint, whereas with the watered down black I can totally do this. So we're going to set him on his side to dry, and then we're going to move him out of the way so we can work on these horses for a little bit here. But yeah, that's about ready. You could literally just, so the the caveat on that is, okay, so that took me 30 minutes to do that part of that. But the priming took 5-10 minutes to do in total, probably, because I primed the bottom with it laying on its top, and then I flipped it over and primed it on from the top with its bottom towards the table, priming table. And then I brought it in here and then did that initial basilicanum gray, and that part didn't take long. Doing the actual basilicanum gray didn't take long, but what did take long was actually letting that part of it dry. That took roughly 2.5 hours. So that's the first lengthy part of this method. So then once the black on those treads dries, I'll show you the second lengthy part of this method. Which will probably also take roughly at least 2.5, maybe even longer, than 2.5 hours. So, but anyways, we got horses to paint. So let's see. So how we're gonna approach these horses? I kind of forget what order that I did everything in on these other ones. Okay, so I believe, though, if I remember correctly, what I did was, yeah, cool. All right, that's what we're gonna do anyways. All right, so let's pull out our Black Templar here. So I wasn't sure how to feel about these contrast paints at first when I first heard about them, but now I really like them. They remind me a lot of the consistency of old school Games Workshop inks from the late 90s and early 2000s. And I think with a little bit of, adding a little bit of the contrast medium to these to thin them down just a tiny little bit, basically you can get a lot of the similar effects that you would get with inks from that time period with these guys. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. I don't know if that's totally right, because I haven't really done that. I just kind of use them straight out of the bottle. And the purpose of how I use contrast is to lay down a good nuanced base coat on stuff. I find, especially over just Gray Seer, I can just literally slap this Black Templar's contrast and get a really great black that has depth and highlight and shading to it, and with a little bit of extra work can really pop so hard. It doesn't require much effort at all. But if you don't even want to go that far, you don't even have to. You don't you can just slap this on this. I mean, if you really, you could go the slap chop method and get those built-in highlights that way too. Really doesn't matter. And so as you can see, I'm blocking out lots of area here, and that's fine. Again, any mistakes I'm going to fix up later on. It's not a big problem, big issue, big deal. And in fact, this is really just not even going to be, this is not even close to the final part of this process. I will be really sad when I have to paint 10 of these horses on stream. I'm going to cry a little bit. These are such a lengthy paint process because they have a lot of different colors on them. And I usually like to stick to a very limited color palette, very simple paint schemes. Because again, that's part of my belief, is that half of the difficulty or enjoyment of a paint scheme is really decided in the moment where you pick your color palette. And I think having a limited color palette creates a strong identity for an army and for models, especially if you pick a good set of colors. I happen to really feel like I lucked onto something I really like, and that's also part of it too, is if you don't like, you can have the best color scheme in the world, but if you don't like it and you don't like painting it, you're going to be miserable. So pick a color scheme you like, and you like painting. Like, I'm whining about these horses, but they're really not that bad. It just takes a little bit of time, and I'm an impatient human. Just like my dog is currently being impatient to be let out. So I'm going to go let her out really quick, and we'll be back. Got first horseman done, or well, the first horseman, we got the black done. So now the next horseman. And so even though I'm saying like, oh, these guys have so many colors on them, really they don't. Because I've got the black, the silver, I've got the red that's on their horses. I don't know what you would call these things. I want to call it the horse's coat, but that's not what it is. It's not a coat. So it's it's all good. All right, let's not be clumsy. It's easy to break a lance, and I don't want to have to repair that because I'm lazy. All right, but yeah, I've got the black, the red, the silver. I've got the horse has a very specific brown to it that I achieve with a couple of different colors here. That we may not get these horses done on this one video. You may have to come back and watch me paint again another night. when I'm doing this to see the finished horse product, because these horses do have a couple of lengthy steps for them. So, and I got started kind of late tonight. I'll at some point do some real marathon, like 12-hour paint streams, so you guys can see how I paint an army in a weekend when I do that. Because I can, will, and have done that, and I will do it on stream to absolutely flex, just that I can do it. So I'll basically, my plan for right now, if anybody watches this and wants to audit my promises later, my plan for it right now is to basically acquire enough Scion-based Scion materials, as in Tempestus Scions, so that's Tempestus Scions and Tempestus Scion Command Squads, which are just the same box, and some Tauroxes, and potentially some Tauroxes Prime, which again are the same box. Enough to justify calling it an army. I don't know what points level we need to call it. Do we need to get to 2,000 points for me to be able to do it? Is that the challenge I want to set for myself, is to paint like 2,000 points worth of Scion crap in a weekend? And by that I mean approximately, let's see, I'd give myself 3 12-hour shifts of doing it, basically. So treating it like my actual work week. So what if I did my work week as a painter? Like, what if I spent my normal amount of hours that I work at work in a given week, 36 hours, because I work 3 12-hour shifts every week. What if I worked that as a painter? Is that enough to every week paint a 2,000 point army, basically? And so here in a second, once I slap this black on the last couple of these guys, I'm going to sit down and do the math on what I would need models wise that I could do that. I'll probably try and actually assemble some of that stuff on stream too. Not that that's super interesting to watch, but I just want to see, I guess, if people do want to watch it. Definitely going to be assembling, I'm going to be doing a test of that when I'm going to assemble some some Kriegsmen and some Tempest. Well, yeah, I'll assemble the Aquilons. I'll wait to paint the Aquilons until I'm painting the rest of the Scion stuff, so that will add to that points level, unless I find out that they're unnecessary. So we're going to take a look at that in a minute. And we'll use it also as an excuse maybe to get a couple of other random guard things that I want that are just good to have that aren't owned yet. We'll see. Let's my dog is barking for me. For whom the dog barks for me. Alright. Nightmare. Hey. Do not go over there and eat the cat shit out of the cat box, dude. I'm watching you. I know your tricks. I know your tricks. Alright. Okay. Another one Brides to Dust. So that's 3 of 5 more horsemen done. We love it. What's fun about this too is that, so like once I do this, my next step is gonna be to do a little bit of work on the base. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about here. In just a minute, because I'm really not that far away from being done with this part of this process. And then we'll be able to actually move on. Before I do that, because I want to start this hellhound on its next leg of its journey, and it's about ready for that too. Again, this is what's great to have like 2 or more things to work on concurrently, especially if you have stuff that has different dry times. I really need to like be sitting in a different position here, don't I? So you guys can kind of see better what I'm doing. I don't know. Y'all can tell me about it later. This is a test run. I'm still working out all the kinks on this version of things. We just got a new setup for our permanent stream table as well, and it is it's all set up now, but it took me a good chunk of the night to get that done, so that's okay. That's what we needed to do, so I'm glad though to be finished with that part of it for the moment. I'll have a little bit more work to do on it as we add some more things here and there, because now we'll have the capacity to not worry about catching on fire, because our other computer that we had initially been using for streaming, it basically was to the point where that was a legitimate worry. So all right. Any place where this is what I like about this contrast paint sometimes. So if you're doing this, what I'm doing, any place where it gets over on it, somewhere you don't want it to get onto that you've already painted, you can just kind of scrape it off because it's pretty liquidy. And depending on the color that you're trying to scrape it off of, you're going to have more or less success with that. But let's see, we got a little spot there that I need to get. All right, and he's basically, so this is the state. Come on, camera. This is the state that we're basically getting these guys to. So a lot of gray still. A lot of gray here. But hilariously enough, with the black, the silver, and the gray, that's 3 colors. So if you literally just took them to this point, I guess, and then based them, since most places are still requiring at least basing, that is enough to just technically get you to battle ready, I guess. Some places are going to probably would give you shit for the fact that you didn't paint the vast majority of the model at all, other than to prime it. But who cares? Technically correct is the best correct, right? All right, so. Unfortunately, it looks like there's still some wet spots on that chimera, so that's okay. I may as well just progress to the next step on these guys first, and then we'll go to or not the chimera, the hellhound. Hellhound. All right. nothing that I love more than like a really basic kit bash or conversion, or all you've really done is swap some weapons around or some heads. It can just look really, really good without being a lot of effort, and it just gives your army a little flair. Like one of my ones I think about constantly is my Space Marine Scouts. Are all built from the real Scout kit, but I gave them all old school Firstborn Red Scorpions Forge World heads from 1,000,000 years ago. So, okay. Now, so this is not, let's see. No, we're good to progress to the next step. All right. Yep. Talent in a jar right there. Null oil. So, I'm going to give this guy a spritzing of that here. With a green brush. I want you guys to see that. This thing is total dog shit. That's what I'm using. Alright? So I don't really need to do too much of this on the treads, but we do want to do it on the metallic parts, because this is going to give us a good kind of oily thing, and we're going to make sure we spread it around really good and get it down into the recesses, and especially make sure if there's any places that we didn't hit, that, you know, with other paint at some point, that it's getting down into there, because it'll cover up all those little mistakes that you might have made, or that I might have made, you know, specifically in this case, all the mistakes that I might have made. So, and you know, there are many of those usually there are many. So this covers a lot of those up, and then, you know, after you've done this step, you can really go back and do some really cool highlights and other stuff, and you know, but I think this just gives you, this just kind of brings everything for these first base layers together. And after that, I mean, like literally, like, so you could stop before we did this. You don't have to do even this much. Like, you've already kind of pre-shaded with all of the contrast paint usage that I did at the beginning of stuff there. That really pre-shades everything for you. But this I like, because this adds an extra layer of depth to it, in my opinion. It really gets you that grimdark look. You know, it kind of evens out some of the places where you might have seen brush strokes, or stuff like that. You know, where I've been really aggressive with the dry brushing. This kind of tones some of that stuff down. So you do want to make sure you're not too aggressive with this step also, because you can get that pooling and cracks, crevices, corners. And like I say, I'm kind of avoiding getting it too much on the treads because I don't really need to, and also because I'm going to set it just on the treads. So there we go. So it is now been washed. So let's pull it up. I'm going to show you. Yeah, it's just kind of glistening wet, you know, evenly distributed across this very lightly. So, and then it's going to dry, and it's going to look great. And then we're going to add some more cool stuff to it after it dries. Oh, that'll be fun. I know exactly what I'm going to do with it now. How fun. How truly fun that'll be. Cool. So, alright, we're done with the non-oil for right now. Alright, so yes, I talked about that we were going to work on the bases of these horses next. So I need my color. Alright, there we go. So this is Rhine oxide. And what I'm doing with this, I'm taking this. I'm taking my little horseman here. I'm going around the hoof on the horse on the bottom of the base. And I'm taking this and I'm circling around any place where the hoof intercepts with the base. And I'm creating as you can see there, I'm creating that start of that definition between model and base. So, and you'll see more way more clearly here in a minute what I'm talking about, what I'm doing, and why I'm doing it. So if you don't think you're a good painter, this is a like Chad move 5D chess tier level thinking ability to do this. If you don't think you're a good painter, one of the things you can really do to alleviate that is make your bases slap. And it's really easy to do that. You don't have to go overboard. I think these turn out really great. I'm gonna really show you what I have done with them 100% whenever we get done. I'm gonna take you through the whole basing process, and we'll show you how all of these horses look whenever they're all finished up, because all of them are not finished yet. So you guys are seeing, you've seen, I showed you some horses, or I showed you a horse earlier that is probably about 85% of the way finished. He needs a little bit more work. And then these guys are really just starting on their path. So I'm really trying to get them caught up to the other ones, so then I can progress all of these together. And so then I can build another 10 horses and do it all over again with those. And then I'll do 10 Krieg horses probably at least. Then I'll probably be done with horses, hopefully for a long time, unless they release more horses, in which case I'll do more horses. I do like cavalry, but I do not want to play Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar. So this is not necessarily the cavalry I would have imagined I would have been doing first out of all the cavalry options in this game. Alright, cool. So now we've got all those horses like that. And then we've got the next step in this process is to take this other brush, and now we're just going to fill in the rest of the base. So, and what this is doing is, and this is, again, this is I think a top tier cheater move on stuff. If you think you're a bad painter, this is a great trick to make you do a lot better. Doing a kick-ass base, part of it is getting a good base, so that like if you don't get your basing material covering everything, you've got something on there. So now we've got this guy on a gray horse with metal, black robes on a brown base. So, you know, you can put that on the table and that actually doesn't look freaking terrible. It looks awful, but it doesn't look terrible. And I guess I don't really know why that's my grading system, but you know, it is. But don't worry, these guys are gonna look 1,000 times cooler really quickly. It's gonna be really easy, but I do have to wait for that black to dry almost completely. But I do have another step I can do while I'm waiting for that to happen. I really don't have to wait for it to dry totally, completely. I just have to wait for it to get most of the way there. So. Go. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. No step in this process has to be perfect. It's like the Swiss cheese method of painting, of like, I just layer down like 20 layers of Swiss cheese and eventually there's some place where there's no hole. It's kind of my strategy. Like, I'm never going to, you know, you can't let the enemy of the perfect be the enemy of the good, you know. There's that saying, that old saw. Like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and that's what I kind of try and do here with this, is like, I just try and get every layer good enough. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be 100%. If you do that, your army will never finish being painted. I mean, and you know, you don't ever have to be finished painting your army. You can always keep continuously polishing it. It doesn't ever have to be the end of the line for stuff. Alright, so now you see, you know, these horses, again, brown base, white horse, black robes, and they are basically dry on the black areas now. So, alright, so I guess we can go ahead and start working on the next part of the process, which is to clean up with some white, some Corex white. So I know I primed them in gray sear, but I do my cleanups with Corex white when I'm going through here. And like, really, I should slap chop these guys with some Corex white before I start doing all of this, but I'm just, honestly, I have to paint so many models for this army, I'm over it already. I'm not gonna, like, 5 of these horses is 60 points. There's a limit to how much effort I'm willing to expend. I'm not trying for a golden demon here. I'm trying for a army that is good enough to put on the table and not look embarrassingly bad. That is our stated standard and goal. So yeah, so all these places where I have some little overpaints from doing the blacks, from doing these silvers here, any of these places where I know that that's not going to be my color now going forward, I can go back and fix up a little bit, tidy up a little bit with this white. So that's what I'm doing right now. Alright, cool, so that's that one. This part doesn't take very long, but it's a pretty integral part of the process. Alright, so let's see, we got a little smooch down there. That just looks like shading. That could just stay. Okay. Looks pretty good. Alright, so then yep, okay, I can see there's a lot of wet black on this part still. So that's telling me I'm not going to be able to progress to the next stage of these guys for a little while. So that's okay. That is okay. So that's why I should have a third thing going, third thing ready to go, but I don't. That's okay. So we have a couple more steps that we can do, and once we hit the end of some of those, if we're not at a point where we can progress, we'll just take a break until next time, and that'll be that. So you can only do how much you can do at one time. Some of these places I may have to come back to later again and hit with more cleanup, but if I do, I do. I mean, again, no part of this process is perfect. We're not trying for perfect. Alright, so that's basically that. So those guys are done now. Alright, so now my question to myself is, how many places are there on these guys that is? Not many places are the gold. Alright, so that's what we're going to do next then. Because I see the black on too many of these places is still wet, so we'll do our gold. Drawing these guys consists of their little eyeballs, the aqua on the horse chest, and then the tip of the spears. I did a very specific stopping point for these. I want to make sure that I maintain that for a uniform look. I'm actually really pleased with how my Astra Militarum has been coming out. I'm doing that iron breaker highlight that I talked about earlier. And I do a lot of my armies are based off of Iron Warriors. as the color scheme. Because I like the Iron Warrior color scheme. I like the hazard stripes. I find those fun to do on my models. Especially like putting them on places that are kind of not the place that normally the hazard stripes are on models. I kind of like putting them in fun spots. But a lot of them I just stop with Iron Warrior as the top layer highlight. And that's probably fine. But I then also put a pretty heavy layer of grime on top of them too. So it really, really brings down the color scheme to very, very dark. So these guys are just a little brighter, and I'm not even putting the grime, even though they are like a very similar scheme and they're meant to stand alongside my Iron Warriors. They're just a little brighter. So there's a little change of pace to paint. It's fun. Alright. Okay, so I mean, again, technically, you just, I mean, with these guys, with what I've just done here now we've got white horse, silver on the guy, some gold, some black, some brown on the base. Slap a few things on that base, you can call that really battle ready almost. Now, again, it's not where we're stopping. Not by a long shot, but there's like so many places in this process where you can just stop the process and not pick it back up. Oh, I have some more places I have to fix that I missed. I have some horse ears. Some other things I can only see from this angle. Okay, well, that's an angle I'm going to be looking at these guys from a lot. So it's always beneficial to look at your models from several angles while you're painting them, but sometimes it's most beneficial to look at them from some of the angles you're going to look at them from the tabletop the most, because that's where you're going to spot the errors that you will see when you're playing with them on the tabletop. Alright, that looks a lot better. So okay, I think we might have reached the limit of where I can go right now with these. I have to wait for that black to fully and completely dry, and there's a spot I missed on one of these guys with that. There's two spots I missed. Again, this is why I'm saying look at your models from this perspective that you're going to look at them from the tabletop, because you'll see some stuff sometimes to be like, oh my god, when I was holding that model up to my face, I certainly didn't see that. Yep. Okay. Very cool, very cool. So, yeah, so now these guys look are looking pretty sharp. We're on our way. Um, you know, so that's been an hour and 15 minutes here that we've spent doing this painting. And this chimera, or this hellhound, is practically done. Like, once it's done drying in probably 2 hours or so, it's gonna look really, really good. It already does, but it's gonna look fantastic at that point. And then I'll be able to, like I said, I'll be able to put some hazard stripes on a couple places there, and really give it that accent, make it pop. These horses, I have several more stages in the process of them. So we have the process of the next thing that I have to do is the horse flesh color has to go on there. And then that's a contrast paint, so it's going to take a little while to dry. And then after that, once that is done, I'll go back and do another round of cleanup for any places I might have splashed that. And then we'll do over top of all the remaining gray, which will be everything that's going to be like a tan color for like the harnesses and stuff, as well as the places where it's going to be red. We're going to go back and I'm going to put a wash over all of that, and then I'll go back and over top of the areas that are going to be red, I will then go back and do the red, and then we go back and do some final touch-ups. And then we do a Nuln Oil wash over the whole model, and then they'll be ready to join their brethren as being close to complete. But as you can hear from what I'm talking about in that process, this is part of why I don't enjoy painting these horses. I'm doing a lot of parts of this process with contrast paint, which is great for saving time in some ways, but if you use it kind of the ways that I use it, or I don't know, I've never heard anybody not complain about this, that uses this, it does take time to dry. So this is why, like, you know, normally I like to do, when I like to paint, I like to do big batches of paint. I like to have several things to do that I can push to different parts of the painting process so that I can do this. So like I said, I had these two things tonight, and this was kind of a test in a couple of different ways here just to see how everything worked. I think it's working okay, so anybody who watches this later will have to tell me what they think about that part of it, but I will come back with another episode of this here, basically with the idea and conception that I'm going to finish this stuff that I started here. I won't paint it off stream, I'll only paint it on stream, and then I'm going to get together, I'm going to pan the camera over so we can see that I've got some things to assemble here. I've got some 20 Deathcore of Krieg. I've got some Tempestus Aquilons. I've got these Bulgren. I've got 10 more horses. So I'm going to get all that stuff together, and then I'm going to paint all of that stuff for you guys. Oh, I did say I was going to figure out what the, what 2,000 points of Scion stuff would look like to try and do a Scion army. So let's pull that up really quick here. Let's just fiddle with it for a second. Let's see what we do. So alright. So we'll just slap in 3 Tempestus Militarium command squads, because why not? Screw it. Alright. And so then we'll go with 3 units of Scions to start off with. I can take 6 since I made them the thing. Alright, 2 Taurox, 2 Taurox Primes. That's 1,000 points. Oof. Alright, this might be more than I can chew, because that's a lot of stuff already. So tossing the 2 Aquilons gives me 1,200 points. So I think, I don't know if that's even as much. I don't even know if I could chew that much, to be honest. So, it is my intention to do at least 30 Aquans and probably 3 command squads. I hate to say that. Or not Aquan, 20 Aquans and at least 30 of the Scions. So, which would let me do 3 10-man squads or 6 5-mans. So, I don't have those yet, though. I'm waiting, getting some things in order before I go ahead and pull the trigger on all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, basically, you know what? Maybe I'll set my goals on like 1,000 points of stuff, because then that way I can just be like, all right, it's just like a bunch of Tempestus Scions. Like, I'll do the Aquilons maybe alongside the Kriegsmen. I don't know. We'll find out. So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead. Like I say, these are not gonna finish drying to my satisfaction soon enough for me to continue working on them. So I'm gonna go ahead and call this one here. So, anybody who is watching this, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I don't think anybody's actually actively watching at the moment. But if anybody watches it later, please like, comment, and subscribe, especially if you want to see more of stuff like this, or if you want to see something different. So.